Hello there and welcome back to Laurence Plays Factorio Planetary Pioneers for the first video of Series 3. And in this one I'm going to talk a little bit about how things have been going up until now. And the first part I want to look at is what's been going on all of the different planets out there. And I've gone into a bit more detail about our thoughts on how things have gone in the last two videos of Series 2. So if you'd like to hear a bit more about that, click on the links in the description or the card up at the top to go back and have a watch of those. But I'll go through as a quick summary. And so we started off Series 1 on Lignumis, which is a planet of gold and wood and such like. So on this planet we managed to make wooden science and steam science packs, and that was enough to build us a wooden rocket that allowed us to escape to Norvis. On Norvis we spent quite a lot of time building an absolutely enormous city block system, and this is producing everything we need and shipping it up to rockets to go out and colonise other planets. As well as that, we've got all the science parks on this planet, we've got a rocket launch capacity, we've got a mall area that's building all kinds of useful things down here. We've got various systems for processing and producing raw materials like this plastic production system from wood over here, and so on and so on. On this planet we've got all the normal science pack you'd expect, such as automation science, logistics science, there's military science, yellow science for want of a better name because I've forgotten what it's called, and so on and so on. All of the basic Norvian sciences, everything you're used to from the vanilla game. After that we blasted back off into space and we went to explore Norvis's other moon, Maluna. And Maluna has grown quite a lot during the second series when we came back to it, but initially we started off by making the space science pack, which we're producing over here from fairly simple ingredients, and then shipping that out to a rocket to take it over to Norvis. And then we moved on to exploration science here, which required a couple of funny shenaniganry builds, including the inflatable plastic things over here, and generating and passing around the data from telescopes as well, among a couple of other ingredients as well. And once again that was shipped out to a rocket and sent over to Norvis. So that was the end of Series 1, which focused on the Norvian sphere of influence. Then we moved out a little bit further and we concentrated mostly on the sort of northwestern corner of the solar system up here. Starting off by going over to Vulcanus, which is planet of lava, and the lava you can pump out of the ground there and then basically turn it into metals, almost for free. So you need a little bit of calcite that you pull up out of mines as normal, but mostly it's lava which just turns straight into metal, so you get massive quantities of it. And from that we're able to start producing the orange science packs in massive quantities, also known as the metallurgic science packs, and those are being shipped through and taken away once again by rocket. And we've got an enormous number of rocket launch silos on this planet because this is an absolute powerhouse of producing useful things for other planets. So on a simple level we've got the green belts down here, which is the fastest tier of belts we've uncovered so far. And then we've also got the large crushers, which give you a 50% bonus on anything you crush, the large drills, which mean you get twice as much stuff out of the ground as you would expect, and the foundries, which also give you a 50% productivity bonus on anything you make with them. So these are really valuable, really powerful, and so we're taking those away, again by rocket, launching them up, putting them into spaceships, and taking them away to other planets where we're going to want to build stuff. After Vulcanus, we went over to Igris, the planet of magic and crystals and stuff, and very hard stone. On here, we're digging up stone, we're turning it into magic glass, we're turning it into crystals, we're generating copper out of nothing, which is quite an achievement. And then we're combining all of that together in order to make the mineral science packs down here. And there are a few really important things we're exporting from Igris, so that's then being passed all the way over here to the rocket silos. So we're of course shipping out the science packs. Then we're shipping out the magic fluid, which is required to run the Igrian science enhancer machines, which are fantastic. Then we're also shipping out the science enhancer machines themselves, and these give you plus 150% productivity to science crafting. So you essentially, every time you run a machine and get some science out of it, you get an additional 1.5. So it gives you 2.5 times your normal production level, which is amazing. We're also producing crystals, which we're sending off to be made into spidertrons, and diagonal inserters, which are good fun. They do exactly what the name implies, and they're a niche product really, but they're very useful in a few places when you've got a little bit of a funny setup going on in the middle of your spaghetti, and it'd be quite handy to be able to pass something through diagonally. So we don't use them a lot, but when we do use them, they're very handy indeed. We're also exporting the magic pump jacks, which allow you to get twice as much of whatever fluid you're mining out of the ground, but you have to feed water in to keep them fueled. So they're really good on Norvis, but in other places where there isn't free water, they're not quite so appealing. And then we're shipping out a load of steel because we ended up with rather a lot of that from a recipe over here that accidentally generated about a bajillion of it. After Igris, we went off to Cubium, and this is a land of catalysts and nonsense and emotions and stuff like that, where we feed around these blue cubes, and a lot of recipes use them and turn them into grey cubes, and then you have to turn the grey cubes back into blue cubes again, similarly with the yellow and red ones. It's all a bit of a process, but I've made lots and lots of videos about that. We can also make weird liquid emotions as well, so we get emotional tar that cracks up into hope, anger and disgust, and we can then process them through hatred and courage and so on, and various things happen, and then we have to bottle up our disgust and throw it into the lava over here. And so this is an interesting planet because it doesn't have a science pack of its own, but it comes with a lot of extra recipes that make a lot of your other science systems very, very efficient indeed. If we take another look at Vulcanus, over here we brought in a load of the cubes from Cubium, and then those are being passed around here, and that allows us to make the metallurgic science packs over here a lot more efficiently. So we can use this recipe instead, which kicks out 3 science packs every time it runs instead of just 1. So you get another sort of 200% productivity bonus, and that can be stacked with the 150% productivity bonus you get from Igris, and on some planets that can get you up to producing almost 10 times as many science packs as you should. It's a little bit imbalanced, but you know, it's a thing. It is interesting, and it's quite nice to see how the different planets work together. After Cubium, we kind of left this corner of the solar system. We went down to Fulgora because we knew there was a lot of nice toys down there. This is a planet where you dig up massive quantities of scrap that gets brought over here and then unloaded, where you can recycle it down into lots and lots of different useful ingredients. And this planet sort of has its production chains in reverse. Like, you get blue circuits out from here, but if you need green circuits, you can then recycle the blue circuits and to break them down into red circuits and green circuits for use elsewhere. This planet also gives us the electromagnetic plant, which gives us a 50% productivity bonus to anything electrical that we're making in them, and it gives us various types of lightning weapons as well, which are great fun. After Fulgora, we came back to the northwest and went over to Corundum, which is a planet all about sulfur. And that has its own science pack once again. So here we have electrochemical science. It's another orange type of science, but sort of yellowy orange this time, so you can kind of tell the difference. And this has got us a few things, including platinum, which we can use to make platinum thrusters, so our spaceships fly a lot faster. And also an advanced type of chemical plant, the catalytic chemical plant, which is better than a normal one because it's faster, but it doesn't give you any sort of productivity bonuses. This one's got plus 24% productivity, but that's because of the productivity modules in it. The machine itself doesn't give you an inherent bonus, and so they're nice because they're faster, but we're not going to go around and replace all of the ones around the rest of the solar system with them because they don't give an actual real bonus that you can't get from just putting out twice as many machines. After Corundum, we nipped over this short distance here to get to Castra, and Castra is a planet of combat and nonsense. And so on Castra we have these things called data collectors, which take in pollution, which on this planet is called data and is generated by radars and roboports, and then it produces items. So here we've got some low density structures, some battlefield science data, red circuits, sometimes there's millerite, sometimes there's gunpowder, and so on, all being produced by these machines and dropped onto belts so it can be taken back to the middle of the base. But the interesting thing about it is the important resource, the battlefield data packets, these things here, will gradually spoil. So we're then pulling those out over here to build them into science packs as quickly as we can. And that takes in tanks and ammunition and then produces the battlefield science packs. Great. And those can be passed back to the middle of the factory and then shipped out by rocket as usual. But the weird thing about this planet is these data collectors, actually when they're outside your walls and you haven't managed to capture them by putting in special magic radars, they're kind of hostile, so they count as enemies. They still produce stuff, sure, but they also sometimes produce turrets, and later on we'll find them producing things that are even more dangerous, and they become a little bit of a problem. But for now they're reasonably passive, except when bots fly out and try and pick up all the little bits and pieces that are out here and get shot down by the turrets. This planet's special building is the Forge, and this gives a 25% productivity bonus, which isn't as high as some other things, but is not too bad, and a 10% quality bonus. And this can be used to make basically all of the military things and bits of personal equipment. So things like you can make armor, you can make batteries, you can make personal roboports, you can make night vision goggles, you can make ammunition, you can make guns, and all these things are coming out with the improved productivity, which is quite nice, but also coming out with the quality improvement as well. And that makes it a lot easier to produce higher quality bits and pieces for armor and suit stuff, and that's very, very handy. So we're going to be making a lot of use of those in the upcoming episodes, I think. And that's as far as we got in Series 2. So as I say, we mostly did the sort of northwest corner up here, but we missed out a few planets and we did Fulgora as well. It's a little bit funny, but we're basically aiming for that sort of area, and then we got distracted by some of the toys on Fulgora and went over there instead. Or as well, perhaps I should say. In Series 3 we'll be heading over to investigate Gleba, so that's going to be fun, and no doubt all kinds of horrible and weird things will happen to us over there, so that's something for you to look forward to. And so that covers the planets, but what else are we going to be doing? Well, one of the things we've noticed is that our spaceships are a little bit of a mess. So we started off, Mike made a spaceship to do the Maluna Norvis run when he was in charge of, well, he's still in charge of Maluna, but when we were working on Maluna. And then I borrowed that spaceship to also go over to Lignumis, which is one of my planets, in order to transport the science packs from there. And that was actually okay, because all of these planetoids are so close together that the ship can fly back and forth between here in almost no time at all, so it's absolutely fine shipping all of the science packs into Norvis, and we're okay with that. There is enough capacity. Then when we went out to Vulcanus, Sophia made the Richard Dean Anderson as a ship to go out there and transport the science packs back from Vulcanus, along with a few other useful bits and pieces like tungsten and probably calcite as well, so those will be brought back to Norvis, and that worked really nicely. It could fly over there, it could load up, because there's lots of rocket silos there ready to ship the science packs up. It could fill up very, very quickly and fly back again. Lovely. Then when we went to Igris, Tristan made the Dynamic Storyteller's Incredible Conveyance. So that ship flies out there, again, picks up the science packs and anything else that's needed to be transported, like the magic fluid, brings it back to Norvis. This is all fine. However, from then, things started to go a little bit downhill because some of us were very, very lazy, especially me. Because when we went to Cubium, I thought, okay, we don't need to transport that much stuff from Cubium, so let's just send the Richard Dean Anderson over there as well, and it can transport cubes to wherever they're needed. But then Mark decided that he wanted to bring the Concentrated Dreams over to Norvis because he felt it was a bit too cheaty to bring those over there. So then the Richard Dean Anderson had to go to Cubium a lot more often and also had to pick up a lot more stuff from there. It was still hanging on okay, it could manage the 2 planets, that was just about alright, but it was starting to struggle a little bit. Then we started going to Corundum as well, and so we decided it'd be a good idea to get the Dynamic Storyteller to also go to Corundum and pick up the science pack from there, which was kind of fine and it sort of worked. And then we went to Castra and decided that, you know what, we've still got the Richard Dean Anderson, it's hanging on, it's managing to cope, let's pick up the stuff from Castra as well and bring that back. And at this point, we started to have problems, because it takes quite a long time for a ship to fly from Norvis to Castra. Now, the flight time isn't so bad, because we don't need an enormous amount of science coming from Castra, because we don't do a huge amount of research involving that planet's science packs. But when you couple that in with the amount of time it takes to pick up everything it needs from Castra, and the time to pick up everything from Cubium, and the time to pick up everything from Vulcanus, by the time the ship was getting back to Norvis, the Norvis science parks had run out of the science packs from those planets, and so it wasn't doing the round trip quickly enough. And so one of the things we're going to need to do this series is start fixing that problem. And there are a few ways to do it. One way would be to expand the amount of storage on the Richard Dean Anderson and have it collect more science from each system it goes to. And that could potentially work on Castra. We've got 4 rocket silos here, which means as long as we've got the science packs available, which I think we generally have, we can launch 8 rockets in pretty quick succession. That's 8,000 science packs, so that's pretty good. But Cubium isn't set up to quite the same extent. So over here, we don't care so much about the cubes. Once we've got some of those out, they don't need to be replenished. But we are shipping out quite a lot of the refined dream concentrate stuff over here. And we can fit 100 barrels into a rocket, which is a decent amount. And there's a decent amount stockpiled here, but we've only got 2 rocket silos. So that means each time the ship arrives, we immediately launch 2 rockets. And then because the rocket silos cache a second rocket inside them, we have a second rocket come out quite quickly, and that can be launched very, very quickly indeed. So we can get our first 4 rockets launched quite quickly. But if we need any more than that, then the ship has to wait around for quite a long time, and that's not ideal. So, simply expanding the storage space available on the ship and then telling it to pick up more science packs, not the best way to fix this. It's not going to be ideal. A second possibility is to just create another clone of that ship. So there are 2 ships doing the loop, and that means they'll be arriving back at Norvis twice as often, with basically the same load being put on the planets, because by the time the second ship has got out, they'll probably have rebuilt their rockets and be ready to launch some more. And if they haven't, then they're clearly not producing the science and the rockets fast enough, so some sort of improvement there is going to be required. So we could just clone the ship and have a second one going out there. The third and probably most interesting option is to make additional ships, and each planet can have its own ships. We have 1 ship that goes out to Vulcanus, we have 1 that goes to Cubium, we have 1 that goes to Castra. Yes, they're going to fly out via the other planets, but if they don't stop, it won't actually delay them very much. And yes, it's the one going to Castra has to fly quite a long way, but as we've discussed, we're not using an enormous amount of science from Castra, so that's probably not going to be too much of an issue. And if it is, we can potentially then just try and boost the science production, maybe have the second ship, maybe have it load more on and put in some more rocket silos. There are various possibilities there. One advantage of having a ship that goes around lots of separate planets, though, is that it means it can unload extra things on the way around. So, for example, if Castra needed some more foundries from Vulcanus, then the Richard Dean Anderson could drop them there on the way past, or possibly more tungsten if it needed to make more artillery to deal with the enemies out there. Whereas otherwise, we either have to have another ship that plows around all of the planets, transporting everything except science around, just in case something needs to go from Vulcanus to Igris, or from Igris to Gleba, or anything like that. And that means another ship, not that that's a problem, but it certainly could be done, but it would be quite a slow ship, and it would take quite a long time to get around all of these planets, unloading everything that was needed. And there is a certain risk that if stuff from Vulcanus was needed on multiple planets, it's only going to end up going to the first one that's asking for it. Now that can be fixed by just having more stuff on the Vulcanus ship and just making sure you're supplying enough things, but these things can quickly spiral out of control and just get bigger and bigger and bigger, so we'll have to think about how we want to do that. We do currently have a ship that goes out to all of the other planets. This is the Lime, and this one keeps an eye on all the things that it might be picking up. So, for example, for Fulgora, we're checking to see if any of the planet imports from Fulgora are 0, and if so, then it will go to Fulgora and fill up on those things before it then goes back to wherever it was trying to go beforehand. And also, we've got a system in here where we can tell it to go to a specific planet, and it will fly over there. And then it will sit there unloading until it's ready, until we're ready to send it off somewhere else. And this is all done through the interrupts, which is quite a clever system, but I'll talk more about how our spaceships work in a future video. And so I guess in summary, we need to find a way to sort out our spaceships and get them to behave themselves a little bit better and be a bit more organised as to which planets they're going out to. Currently, Fulgora is also another weird one. That's got the SES Custodian of Serenity flying out there, this enormous brick of a ship. And this one will go to Fulgora and will pick up all of the things required, especially the science packs down there, as you can see. And it will then do a bit of a loop round, going to Maluna to unload stuff there, and I don't really know why. I don't know what it's dropping off on Maluna. Same on Lignumis, and then it flies around to Igris, where it loads up on the magic fluid, which you can then take back to Fulgora. So this ship is doing an enormous round trip. So despite what I was saying about trying to cut down on the number of different planets a ship goes to, this one is going from Fulgora to the sort of general Norvian area, where it's flying around a little bit for reasons I'm not quite sure about. Then it's flying over to Igris to get the magic fluid, and then all the way back over to Fulgora. But it kind of has to, unless we want to end up double handling our products, because we don't really want to have something that brings the magic fluid from Igris to Norvis and drops it down onto the ground there, because then we'd have to use additional rockets to bring it back up into space to go to the Custodian of Serenity in order for that to take them over to Fulgora. So this one is going to have to make sure it collects enough science packs from Fulgora that the planet will be okay while it does the entire round trip. Alternatively, I suppose, we could have it just doing the back and forth here, and then have a separate ship that goes Igris to Fulgora and carries enormous amounts of magic fluid with it each time it goes. Maybe that would be better. It's certainly an alternative, and one we could consider in the future if we start to run into problems. So yes, the spaceships are going to be one thing we're going to have a bit of a look at in the next series, but also we're going to want to go off to some more planets. And we haven't absolutely decided which planets we want to go to next, but we will definitely be sort of sticking with the inner ones. We want to complete all of the inner planets, so all the ones that sort of no further out than Fulgora, shall we say, before we start going out to the more distant ones like Aquilo and Secretus and Vesta and so on, because in theory that should give us a reasonably sensible difficulty progression. Personally, I'm quite in favour of carrying on with this area up here, because I feel it'd be quite nice to finish off a geographic area of the solar system. So we're definitely going to Gleba first, but then maybe we could pick off Rabaska and Pelagos and Rubia and Mosheen, and that's another 5 planets. That could be a reasonable length for a series. We'll see how it goes though. So maybe we'll aim for those, or maybe we'll get distracted by some toys from somewhere else, or because somebody really wants to go to another planet and we just can't bear to make them sad about it. The other thing that we'd like to have a bit of a look at in the next series is going to be quality systems. And I touched on that earlier when I was talking about the forges. So down here on Norvis, we've got a load of forges set up that we brought over from Castra. And these are working on making quality bits of armour stuff for us. So over here we've got mech suits, and we're trying to make tier 3 quality mech suits. It's not going very well, there aren't any in the box, but we're trying, and that's the point. So this system over here brings in mundane ingredients. They'll then be made into mech suits here in this machine, which will probably make quite a lot of just generally mundane ones. But over there on the right hand side you can see it says we've got a 25% quality chance there, which means there's a 25% chance of it making a quality 2 mech suit, and then smaller probabilities of making higher tier ones. And then those can all be passed over into this Crushomatron here, where they'll be turned back into their original ingredients, or at least a quarter of them, which are then put back into here. But that means some of the ingredients will be tier 2 by this point, and then they can be taken by this inserter into this machine here, which starts with tier 2 ingredients, and therefore has a 70-something% chance of making a tier 2 mech suit, and a 25% chance of making a tier 3 mech suit, and a small chance of making a tier 4, when we research those. And so if we make tier 3s, they'll be put out into this box, but the tier 2s or lower will be put out into here to be recycled. And so this will churn round and round and round and round and round, and eventually, in theory, when it's run enough, we will end up with some tier 3 mech suits in here. It takes quite a long time, it takes quite a lot of processing, because there's only a 25% chance of it going up a tier each time it runs, and you lose 3/4 of whatever you've made when you recycle something. So it's not cheap and it's not fast, but it does work. As is demonstrated over here by the fact that we've managed to make 21 tier 3 exoskeletons. So I'd like to grab myself some more of those if I can, and a load of tier 3 batteries, and so on and so on and so on around here. And so this is something that's working reasonably nicely, but we'd quite like to expand and have a bit more quality stuff happening. We've already put quite a lot of quality modules into the machines that are making things around here, and a few into the machines that are making end products over here, like these weapons over here, for example. So we might have a higher quality machine gun, which means you get a slightly better range. We might get slightly higher quality inserters, which means they run a bit quicker. So basically things where the quality is actually useful, we're trying to do that with the quality modules over here, but there are some improvements we can make to this to make it run a bit better, a bit more effectively, and produce more and more and more of the high quality things. Another thing we've considered is trying to make high quality science packs, because the pressure lab is a special type of lab that functionally can only use quality science packs. If you put normal ones in, they just get destroyed really quickly. But in exchange for that, you only have a 30% science pack drain, so you effectively get 3 times as much science out of each science pack. And that makes your science quite a lot cheaper, so that's kind of worth it. The downside, though, is that for it to run, you need to put all of the science packs in for the current research that you're doing, and that means we'll need to go around all of our science production systems around the entire solar system and start upgrading those to use quality modules and try and produce higher quality science. So that's a bit of a mission, but it's possibly going to be worth it. The other part of that, of course, is even if we don't do the pressure labs, if we make quality science packs, then they will last longer in a machine. So I believe a tier 2 science pack, you can get twice as much science out as a tier 1 science pack. However, in normal gameplay, we've done the maths about this, and in general, you tend to find that the amount of bonus you get from putting quality modules in is less than the amount of bonus you get for putting productivity modules in. So here you see you get a 2.5% quality bonus. That means there's a 2.5% chance of getting a higher quality science pack out of the machine if there's one of those in it. Alternatively, if there's one of these in it, then we get a productivity boost of 10%, so every 10 science packs will get an additional one being produced. So the quality module is a 2.5% chance of doubling it, which can be looked at as a 2.5% bonus, whereas the productivity module is a 10% chance of getting an additional one, and therefore a 10% bonus. So the productivity modules are significantly better. And if you want to get the absolute most out of everything that you possibly can, then you should be putting productivity modules all the way through all of the ingredients to all of your science packs. And with something like red science, that's great. You can put productivity on copper plate and iron gear production, and you can also put productivity on the molten metals to make the plates and gears, the crushing, and so on all the way up the chain. However, some of the packs, like production science, this uses rail, electric furnaces and productivity modules, and these all count as final end products, and therefore you're not allowed to use productivity modules with those. So for these ones, you could put quality modules into the steps that are producing the rail, the electric furnace and the productivity module, and then put productivity modules into the machines making the actual purple science itself, and that would then produce some higher quality production science, which you could then feed into your labs and get that bonus. But if you're only doing it with the purple science, and I think probably the yellow science and maybe 1 or 2 others, then you're not going to be able to run the Steam labs, but you can still get the bonuses in the normal labs from them. So there are decisions to be made there, whether it's still very up in the air as to whether it's going to be worth it, and we haven't made a proper decision yet. And so I think that's going to be Series 3. Well, I say that now. Of course, as we start playing, things are going to explode, things are going to fail, we're going to realise there's other upgrades we haven't done. And that reminds me, over on Norvis, we're still making all of our circuits in assembly machines, so those need to be upgraded to EM plant, and there's probably a few more things like that that also need upgrading. So there are some fixes needed over here that we'll also be looking at during the series. And I'm sure many, many other things will occur to us as we go along. Maybe another planet will have a crisis, we'll have to go in and fix it. Who knows? That's the excitement of playing these things live. So make sure you come along to join us every Monday at 7:30 PM UK time when we'll be carrying on with this. If you'd like to give it a shot yourself, and I do recommend this mod pack, it's a lot of fun, there's a lot of planets in there, there's 40-ish locations, and many of them have more than one science pack, so there's a lot to get your teeth into. Then you can grab the Planetary Pioneers mod from the Factorio mod portal. We keep that reasonably up to date, basically as up to date as we are on the stream series, but we do tend to wait a little while after updates happen to make sure they seem to be stable and they don't spectacularly break anything that we're doing. But keep an eye on the release notes if we do a mod upgrade on there. We'll also sometimes add in extra planets if we find new ones that look suitably complete and like they'll be a good addition to the game. In the last batch we added in Nexus and Tenebris and Hyarian and Foliax and Rabaska and Omni and probably some more as well that I've forgotten. So the pack is actually growing probably faster than we're making our way through it. So we may be at this for some time, but that's part of the fun. If you'd like to play along in exactly the same universe as us, you get all the same planets and all the same spawns and all that sort of thing, then stick in the seed 11111 and you'll end up with exactly the same universe as, or at least you should end up with exactly the same universe as us. We've messed around with it a little bit with adding some new planets in, so it's possible it might not work, but it's worth trying anyway. Then on Wednesday I'll be back at 8 PM playing some more Foundry, which is a sort of a 3D version of Factorio. It's Factorio in a Minecraft world, and I'm having a lot of fun with that stream, so yeah, please come along and join me for that one as well. Thursday and Friday there'll be videos coming out, keeping you up to date on what's been going on in Planetary Pioneers and maybe some of the other series I've been playing, so keep an eye out for those as well. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss them. And I think that's about everything that goes on around here. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and we'll be back to join us for the streams and future videos. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.